Stephanie McMahon was on the Bloomberg Business of Sports podcast talking about everything business related to the WWE. Super insightful interview if you have any interest at all in the business side of the WWE, how they work from a corporate structure. Just a great in-depth interview on the business side of things. In particular, one of my favorite things is the emergence of the streaming service and how that industry is developing. And here's what she had to say about that.
Let's get back to our conversation with Stephanie McMahon, the Chief Brand Officer over at WWE. So, Steph, I want to go a little bit deeper on streaming because Peacock obviously is a huge deal for you guys and is also, I would say, from a sporting perspective and from an entertainment perspective, a very strong endorsement of that streaming service. Tell us how you guys sort of assessed the landscape because, you did a really nice job of laying out kind of where we were, back in the WrestleMania 1 days to where we are now. And our habits have changed, distribution has changed. But you are, one of the biggest deciders, as it were, in terms of directing your content. Walk us through that process for the brand.
Sure. Well, and Vince's perspective has always been to be slightly ahead of the curve. You never want to be so far ahead of the curve that people don't understand what you're doing, and you certainly never want to be behind. So it's one of the reasons why we were, first to launch 7 years ago, one of the first to launch WWE Network, our direct-to-consumer and OTT service. Because we had done a ton of research, and our fans had been very vocal that they wanted their own destination, their own channel, if you will. We did learn a lot, from that time. So we were actually pretty far down the pike negotiating a linear deal. But then our, almost partners wanted to lock up our rights for about 10 years. And it just was a really long time, and we, decided to take a step back. We did deeper research. We learned that our fans were consuming 5 times more online video than average. So we thought, you know what, let's control our own destiny here. And we doubled down in 8 months, which was a huge Herculean effort, if you will, to launch WWE Network at that time. But even prior to the pandemic, we were already starting to have conversations with different partners and players in the space because, like I said before, we're not a technology company. I think we did a remarkable job, and we have a remarkable technology team, but that's not who we are at our core. And that we're not going to change who we are at our core. We don't have the capital to do that, and that's not the direction. That's not our level of expertise. So what we are is incredible content creators, and we have, a generations-long history of that. So we wanted to find the best partner that we possibly could to provide our most premium content. And NBCU has been a partner of ours for over 30 years.
The WWE Network, when it came out, I think a lot of people overlooked that the WWE Network was groundbreaking. There was not a lot, it was not the industry that streaming in general was not the industry that it is now 7 years ago. There was no Disney Plus. There was no Paramount Plus. There was no fucking Your Mom Plus. There was no Peacock and Hulu and all that shit. Maybe Hulu was around back then, but still trying to find its footing. The WWE Network was really one of the first in line for the over-the-top streaming service, the in-your-home direct-to-consumer product. So definitely groundbreaking, but it was interesting to hear Stephanie say that they're not in the technology business. They're not in the streaming business. They are a content provider, not a content platform, if that makes sense to you. They're not in business to create the best streaming service. They're in business to create content. So if they have people sitting in the big chairs, sitting around the table, Vince is there eating a steak with ketchup, mean mugging people who are about to sneeze. When they're sitting around this table having these conversations, at some point they decided, how much effort are we going to put into our network? We have this network. Are we a network company? Are we our own network? Are we a streaming service? Or are we a content provider? If we are a content provider, that's where our focus needs to be. Simplify. Not only that, but we have people working for WWE that are smart enough to realize that all these other networks are in the process of buying content right now. They are all in the market for content because they're competing with each other. It's the wild west of streaming services. All right, we went from a Netflix and maybe a Hulu and a WWE Network all the way up to fucking, you have a streaming service for everything. If you subscribe to everything, all the streaming services, you're paying far more than you ever paid in cable. Getting a lot more back, but paying far more. Somebody in WWE, and it might have been this Nick Khan fella, they took a look at the situation and they were able to realize that they could make a boatload of money if they just sold their content instead of putting out their own network and being a fucking tech company and having to run this streaming service, which they did flawlessly until they did their little revamp or rework or remodel or whatever the fuck you call it, the updates that they did to it. Completely messed it up. I loved the way it was set up before that. It was so easy to follow. But in any event, they were nearly flawless. If you remember back at the beginning, there were a few lagging issues and things like that, which is absolutely normal in any new streaming service. Even Disney Plus had lagging issues on its first day. It wasn't, a lot of times that just kind of boils down to you're not sure how much traffic you're going to get, and sometimes the site just crashes or has a hard time kind of keeping up with everything. But in any event, they were trendsetters when the WWE Network came out, but now we are in an era where you can make stupid money selling everything to one of these streaming services so that they have product to put on TV. They're not even concerned with making money right now. You're paying $1 billion over the course of 5 years for the rights to use this. Well, shit, there's a little over 1 million subscribers, and they're only paying $10 a month. That's $10 million a month. That's times 12. That's what, 120,000 or 120 million a year you're pulling in. 120 times 5. I don't know about you, but to me, that doesn't add up to $1 billion. That adds up to 600 million, roughly. This isn't a math podcast. It doesn't fucking matter. What I'm trying to tell you is that the Peacock network is paying far more for the WWE network than they are going to make off the WWE network, and they don't care. Because right now they're willing to take that loss to compete in the marketplace, to go out and say, well, we have this and we have that. Come subscribe to us. All these streaming services are in the process of just collecting customers right now. Not so much Netflix, because they're established. They have all their customers. Right now, Netflix is in danger of losing customers. Right now, Netflix is trying to stay in the game, let alone on top of the game. Because I would venture to say that Netflix is going to not be an industry leader for too long. Some of these other networks are going to rise up, and they're going to do it by having the kind of content that's going to drive traffic to them and want to subscribe. WWE is certainly part of that. There's not a lot of casual viewers that were around during the Attitude Era and that kind of thing that are going to pay $10 to subscribe to the WWE Network every month. They don't care. But if it was something they were going to subscribe to anyway, or on the fence on, should I subscribe to Peacock or should I subscribe to this fucking Paramount shit? A WWE network, oh, by the way, you're going to get WrestleMania. You're going to get all the old WrestleManias. You're going to get everything. We have WWE's entire library eventually, once they figure out technology and can actually get it uploaded. It was a short, the deal happened quick. They didn't have time to, ideally they should have had it all transferred before even announcing so they could just launch and have it, but everything came together quick. So give them a little slack on that. But you see where this is heading. So they made WWE, another thing Stephanie said in this interview, which was fucking brilliant. She's a smart chick. Stephanie's very smart. One of the things she said in here was that WWE's always been good at being ahead of the curve. She said you don't want to be so far ahead of the curve that people look at you like you're a fucking weirdo. Like, what are these assholes doing? Their own network? What's that? That's not even a thing. So you don't want to be that far ahead of the curve. But you don't want to be so far behind the curve either that you're playing catch up. You want to be slightly ahead of the curve, which WWE was. Netflix was already out. Streaming services were already kind of a thing, but they weren't really a thing. There was a Netflix, and then that was it, pretty much. And then all of a sudden, WWE's like, yeah, see, Netflix is doing it. Let's do that. Years before even like a Disney came out or Paramount. This is Viacom and then Peacock with NBC Universal. These are the big time players in the media industry, the content creation industry. These are the heavy hitters. And WWE was 7 years ahead of the game on these people. 6 years, 5 years. They are truly ahead of the game. And now they're doing it again because right now the name of the game is buying content for the streamers. And if you're a seller, it's a great time to be trying to make deals to sell your product. WWE's making hand over fist in TV ratings or in TV royalties because ratings are down across the board. Everybody talks about wrestling ratings like they're fucking through like they're tanking, right? Ooh, compared to the Monday Night Wars, meh. Ratings are tanking across TV, and you could point out to, oh, well, this still gets this many million viewers and blah, blah, blah. Sure, but wrestling was always a niche audience anyway. And when the only place you could find it was on TV, then your ratings were going to be higher than they are now when it's not the only place they could find it. They have their own network. There's people that just watch the old shit. There's people that just listen to podcasts and catch up on the news of it. There's people that will watch the clips off the YouTube channel. There's people that just pirate it the next day because they don't have cable. There's all kinds of different ways to consume the content. So live TV broadcast is in a position where people just aren't watching the shit anymore. So you want to pay top dollar for original content 52 weeks a year that is must see. Not that WWE's product is must see because it's boring as shit, but it's live and it has potential to be newsworthy and it's different every week. So if they could just write, a better show, it would be appointment television still. So that's where they're getting the rights fees there. Then you got these streaming services. You have an entire back catalog. You have bajillions of hours of wrestling content. You own the wrestling business. If you can sell that, they tried to monetize it for themselves. They only had 1 million subscribers. The better bet is to sell it to somebody for their streaming service. Look how much more money WWE, we just walked through the math. Remember, this is a math podcast. We just walked all the way through the numbers. WWE is making way more money, probably double, close to double, almost double what they were making on their own just by licensing it out to somebody else to run on their shit. And they don't even have to worry about the tech problems or nothing. They don't got to do shit except for cash a check and fucking make the videos available. Here you go. Here's the files. Have fun. Talk to you in 4 years when we can renegotiate after the 5th year, I believe that WWE will end up being bought. I've been on this train. If you've been listening a little bit, you know that I've been talking about it before. I think WWE is on course to just selling outright. It looks like NBC would be a player, but I would love to personally see Disney buy that. And I know a lot of people have their beefs with Disney and they have their reasons for being against that. But for me personally, being a Marvel fan and seeing that, I'm not a Star Wars fan, so I don't really give a shit about that. And I know there's a lot of true purist Star Wars fans that don't like what Disney's done with it. As far as Marvel's concerned, they haven't fucked up the product at all. In fact, they hired the biggest, dorkiest nerd that knew everything that they could find to head up. Well, he was already running Marvel Studios, but they kept it in place. They didn't come in and fuck it up and change everything. They wanted it to. They made it better. They put the Disney balls behind the product and just put out the best possible quality product, fan service, all of that shit. Callbacks, references, true to the comics, all that shit. All of it's there for your enjoyment. So I think in the hands of a Disney, a WWE would do fantastic. I would much rather that than an NBC or something to that effect, but we shall see. Only time will tell, but I do believe we're going to see that sooner rather than later.
Oh yeah, thanks for checking out the video. Yeah, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like it if you liked it. Yeah, and you can check out full episodes each and every Sunday right here on the channel. Oh yeah, dig it.